Welcome everyone to today's Rare Birds Mentor Lab session, Growing Your AI Capability, a practical guide to ChatGPT and generative AI tools, and also the first session in our Productivity and Human Resources series. My name is Tegan. I am the Partnerships and Community Manager at Inspiring Rare Birds. And today I'm joined by Simon Belousoff, an Executive Leader in AI, Data and Digital Strategy and Transformation. To begin, and in the spirit of reconciliation, Rare Birds would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of country throughout Australia. And I'd like to recognise the Awabakal people, the traditional custodians of where I'm broadcasting from today, and their connections to land, sea and community. We pay our respects to their elders past and present and extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples. For those who are new to the Inspiring Rare Birds community, our mission is to support and promote diversity and inclusivity where opportunities in entrepreneurship and leadership exist equally for everyone. We are best known for our mentoring programs, but we also offer a range of educational masterclasses, host online and in-person events, providing people with the opportunity to build their networks and grow with the Rare Birds community. If you'd like to learn more or get involved, please indicate your interest in the survey, which will show up at the end of today's session, or you can reach out to me or anyone in the Rare Birds team for a chat. Speaking of chats, if you take a look at the right-hand side of your screen, you'll see a little chat box that you can use to introduce yourself, make comments or connect with others. There's also a Q&A tab. Feel free to pop your questions in throughout the presentation and we will have time at the end to answer them. Now I'd like to introduce Simon, who has an extensive experience in building enterprise capabilities. Simon drives significant business value through innovative AI solutions and customer experience enhancements. His expertise spans strategic leadership and the implementation of transformative technologies that accelerate business growth and improve operational efficiency. Simon is passionate about leveraging AI and data to create impactful outcomes across industries. Welcome, Simon.
Thank you, Tegan. What a wonderful introduction. I'm going to have to grab that one and put it in the library. So welcome, everybody. Today, we're going to have a very focused session on generative AI. So it's a subset of overall AI, and you're already using AI tools. You probably don't even know it. So if you're used Google search or, you've heard the word algorithm in your Facebook feed, you've already touching and being engaged and interacted with AI. We're going to talk about generative AI and the capability that brings. And it's a very practical session that I'm going to run today. To give you some tips, run you through some examples, explain some things around the tools, and really focus it more on almost an introduction and how you might use it better perspective around ChatGPT and the other Gen AI kind of services and out there in the market. So here's to give you a flavor of the kind of the base or strong models or services that are and the providers. There's different form of AI products in market, and they use different models and primarily bucketed into three broad areas. So text, image, and video. And this is around the output. So in the text bucket, ChatGPT is the market leader and the most well-known, but you also have ones by the name of Claude, Llama, which comes from Team Facebook, Gemini, which is a Google product, and Copilot. And then you've got the other ones you can see there in image and video. A couple of kind of background things to keep in mind when you talk about the text AI tools. They're built from the perspective of statistically predicting what's going to be the next word or partial part of the word. They essentially feed in as training data the whole of the publicly available internet. They curate that a bit, and then they basically get the model to look at all that data and then say, predict what the next word is and match against that big training set. So that's how they're able to get it so fine-tuned, so intuitive, so much like a human response, is because they've just fed it a massive amount of data and said, hey, predict what the next word is. And it's basically comes down to the patterns that kind of consistently appear. And that's what it generates. It's just important to remember that, because ChatGPT just likes to generate text. And if you like, it'll talk and talk and produce so many words. The image generators use a slightly different, and the video generators use a slightly different kind of model. It's something called a diffusion model. And they're able to generate images from that. They still use a text prompt to get them there. The really key thing here is that these services, I think ChatGPT launched about October 2022, version 1, if you like. The performance and the quality of outputs has continued to increase, and it's got better and better and better, and it tends to run in 3, 6, 12-month cycles. So, for example, Gemini from Google, both in the text, image, video, when I first began talking to Tegan about doing this, I wouldn't have even considered Gemini to be kind of a leading model, but it's come a long way in the last 3 months, and so it is really high quality now. Most of you will probably just look to use ChatGPT 4 as a kind of a general purpose model, but the providers tailor their models for different kinds of tasks. Some of the models that have been doing the rounds recently are really focused on what they call reasoning, which is really around deep thought and having time to think and reflect before they develop out their answers. And you might ask them more broad questions, like how, I'm running this kind of business. What kind of strategy should I use to enter the market into this area? And I'm looking to get this many customers of this type. And it will work through in a much more reasoned and kind of structured thinking process, taking longer to come out with a better output. It's a bit confusing for everybody because with all of these models, there's different pricing tiers and different ways to use, slightly different ways to use the models. And they often have different kinds of slightly different outputs. So, for example, with the text-based models, ChatGPT, Claude, etc., although you get text output, there'll be different ways that you might be able to save that output or share that output with others in your business or in your team. So that part's a bit confusing, but you can see it's a broad spectrum of models out there. What's different about this generative AI? What's kind of special about it? So to me, these are the key points of differentiation or what's positively different. So first of all, it's around natural language, text and voice interaction. So when you type something into, we'll look at the prompt to engage and instruct the Gen AI to do something, it's like having a conversation and the response is very much the same. So it lends itself to interaction. You're also able, if you like in ChatGPT voice mode, you can speak to it and it will speak back to you. And you can speak to it again and it will speak back to you. So that's a very different kind of interaction. You can have a conversation. It feels very much like a conversation. And it's a much more natural way for humans to interact with computers than actually typing, which was kind of how we've got used to doing things kind of in the last 20 years. The second, I think, positive difference is if you give it specific context, and we'll talk a bit more about that, but more and more is better about what you're trying to do and what you're trying to get as an outcome, you can get higher quality tailored outputs. And it can remember the context that you've given it. So you can go on to ask another question or ask it to perform another task, and it can essentially remember the context that you provided earlier. And then if you get kind of, let's call it really mature and get out there, you can move on to things like what they call AI agents. Think of it as a team of AIs that play different roles, and they can basically interact with each other just as a human-based team would. And they've got a degree of reasoning and flexibility in terms of generating the output that they get to. So those are the key differences. This is one that I think really important. It's around the mindset in the approach of generative AI and just thinking about how you use it. It is not Google. It's not Word or Excel or PowerPoint. And it's not really typical software that's very domain specific with a structured business rules to follow. So it's not like a HR system or let's call it an IT system where it does kind of one thing or it works in one area, and you either follow the rules or you don't to make it work. It's not like that. What's more important to think of it as, I think this is the one, certainly in my mind, is having access to effectively infinite instances of the Flash for super fast task completion. And it will do again and again and again. It doesn't have a bad day. It turns up to do it. And thinking of it as a augmentation and a pseudo-human partner. AI is not a human, it is a machine, but the way that Gen AI kind of engages and works, it lends itself to thinking of it as a pseudo-human. So think of it working as a collaborative team. So a thought partner, or a junior, or an intern, or assistant, a subject matter or domain expert. And what's really interesting is you can have it be a newbie, so a junior, or you can have an expert level support if you want it and need it for the task that you're looking to complete. And that's really interesting and really amazing because it allows you to basically tap the shoulder of SMEs that you conceptually need to do to complete a task. It also has infinite patience. So it is a very effective teacher if you want to use that. So it can teach you a language. It can teach you how to code if you want to do that. If you want to kind of learn how to do a marketing plan and you actually want to step through step by step from its perspective, it will actually do that. And you can ask it for more information, or you can basically ask it to rate what you're doing. It's very patient, so it's a great teacher if you learn it, if you use it in that context. Let's go on to prompting like a boss. So we'll get down to some practical components here. So in the top left-hand corner of the slide, you'll see basically a box that says message ChatGPT. Claude and the others have something very similar. It'll ask a question like, what can I help you with? A prompt is the command that goes into that box. It's a natural language text. The fancy word is a prompt engineer writes codes or prompts, but every one of us is a prompt engineer. And certainly after I run through this training session, I think you'll be a better prompt engineer than you were going at the start. And the other thing that's important is, I touched on it before, it's a great teacher. So you can ask ChatGPT, how would I prompt you to do this? Or how would you make my prompt better to improve it? And I've used that to make my prompts better. And it will just basically give you guidance, rewrite the prompt. You can choose, you can have different options. So those are some important things to remember around it. A couple of things to watch out for. The responses from using the same prompt are likely to be different. So that's got a positive. So you get new, fresh ideas or new, fresh options in terms of the answer and the content that's generated. But it can be a negative at times because maybe you lose the prior response you liked and you can't get it back again. So kind of got a comment there around remember to save. Or we'll just touch on it. You can get it to actually explicitly, you can certainly with ChatGPT ask it to save it as a Word document or save it as an Excel for me to download. And it will go off and do that. You can see the paperclip on the side, so you can upload documents, photos, spreadsheets, PDFs, and you can ask ChatGPT to analyze what's in the document, give me some insights, summarize it, give me a different perspective, etc. So it's a very handy option to use. So if you upload the documents, as I touched on, you can also get ChatGPT to generate a document for you that you can then go on to use in other ways. Now, we talked about it being iterative and being like a thought partner and a junior and assistant. What I've found is if you want better output, you can actually get it to get better by saying you can do it again or do it better. Some people have found that if you give some kind of emotional commentary on it, this is really important to me, so give me your very best, it does get better. But I find if you do 3 to 5 asks, you will get a better response. And that's almost about giving it more time to reflect and think about, how do I do this better? So give it more time, ask to do it again. Just like a human, you generally get a better output. Like one of my other tips is around asking it to score itself out of 100. And then what you can happen is just say, how do I improve this? So how could I move it from 85 out of 100 to 95 out of 100? It likes to talk a lot, so you might want to constrain it, and you can give it a word limit, or you can say, give me a summary, give me the key topics. And the other part is it's got some of the smarts that you would have in other forms of AI, in that it can use to classify. So pass, fail, good, not good, those kinds of things. Clustering, prediction, and recommendation. So insights in your data, it can be a handy tool for that kind of analysis. All right, let's do a demo. And I'm going to line up ChatGPT versus Claude. And what you're seeing on the screen where persona, audience, task is an extended prompt. And I personally like to use, and I recommend using the persona and audience prompt a lot. And what you can see there, if you have a read of the persona, is I'm instructing the ChatGPT and Claude to act like a certain kind of subject matter expert that I want to tap into to get my output. You'll also notice that I'm trying to give it some emotional, not only the kind of the role that I'm looking at for it to play, but also some emotional characteristics of the experience I want it to generate. I'm explaining who the audience is, which are the people that are listening into this webinar. And you can see the task there. So a typical kind of marketing content task. I'm working for the community. I want you to write an attractive opening paragraph for an email. Give me 3 options. So this whole part about different things that you as a human can kind of rate as options and think that one works, I like that, etc. No more than 25 words for each, and score each out of 100. So let's see how they compare, because the outputs are different. And the tone of voice, if you kind of have a look at them, are very different, or slightly different in this case, between ChatGPT and Claude. So if you have a look at ChatGPT, it's number 1, scores itself 95 out of 100. Your journey to success deserves a community that inspires and uplifts. Join inspiring rare birds and surround yourself with bold, driven women like you. If we go across to Claude, we look at option 1. Claude scored itself 95 to 100. Its number 1 is ready to soar. Join Australia's most dynamic community of women entrepreneurs, where every dream takes flight and success stories begin. And so on and so on. Now, again, it's personal choice, and this is where the human comes into it, because the human is much better around the context and the work and the business that you're in. You know your business. So, and what you do. So this is around what do you really think works for your customers and the people you're looking to engage. So my personal of these would be the Claude option as number 1. So, but you could iterate. And one of the other things that you can consider doing is taking the output from one model and putting it into another model and asking it again to rate it. How would I improve it? How would I make it better? And I find that very effective. Often I will start with content in ChatGPT, put it into Claude. I find Claude has for me anyway, personally, a better emotional and writing output. I like its style. So I'll polish it up in Claude, and then I'll go back into ChatGPT as a cross-check and just run it through, and again, ask it for score, rate, how would I improve? And I'll bounce that around for a number of times. And look to take the score, say, from 80 to 85 to 95 plus. Now, let's go and have a look at the image generator, because this will be interesting and you'll get to see. So similar kind of task. And the models we're going to compare here are Flux, Leonardo, and Gemini Imagen 3. So you can see their persona. I'm going to create an image and I'm going to use it in a marketing campaign. So I want a consumer advertising director. That's my kind of expert. Again, imagery filled with passion, energy, and positivity. Audience, female entrepreneurs and small business owners. And the task, as you can see there on the screen, is I want a hero image. I'm going to put it in an email. Give me some options with that. So let's see how it goes. So I think what really surprised me on this screen is that the image on the under the Flux, so Flux was able to create that image on the first go. And when it came up, I was, let's call it, unbelievably surprised. Again, I'm not marketing into the rare birds community, but I looked at the image and going, you know what? That looks like a hero image that could be into an email, and it got it on the first go. With Gemini, with Imagen 3, that took me kind of 2 turns. So that was in the second cycle when I said, not quite, can you do it for me again? And it got that image on the second time. And you can see again, that is quite a usable image or a hero image, or you might think, doesn't need that much to touch it up. And then I went across to Leonardo, and this is not so much around the power of Leonardo, because I'll show you some imagery later on about how powerful it is, but it's how it's interpreted the prompt. So in the case of Leonardo, same prompt as Flux and Gemini Imagen, it's focused on the rare birds component. But what's also interesting is I did an update of this in the last couple of days when I updated the presentation. And you can see it's moved from focusing just on the bird to focusing on a female entrepreneur, small business owner with birds around it. So that really, just to say here, is around you will probably need to polish images, as you've seen with the text, a number of times, and you might need to finesse the prompt and how you use it and tell the AI what to do. But you can see with a little bit of kind of polish and refinement, you get really usable images out of the box. Now, with this one, I just want to kind of highlight you that's not just about the text prompting and the documents that you upload, is that you can use your phone camera to create quite amazing results because of ChatGPT's image detection capabilities. And this is actually very, very sophisticated. And if you were to develop an AI model to try to do this kind of object detection and analysis pre-ChatGPT, it would take you a lot of training time, be very expensive, and the results would probably not be as expected. So this is just to show you the power. So the image of the kitchen, that's my kitchen. And if I ask it what style is this and describe the objects, it is able to answer and identify them. I can even ask it what the colors are in there. I can ask it to make suggestions on what changes might I make to the styling to make it even better. That is very amazing. The image on the lake with the steamboat, I asked it this, and it was able to correctly identify that was Queenstown in New Zealand, which it is. And it also said that the weather looked like it was going to be cloudy and likely to rain, just from the photo image. And then from a practical use tool, how might you use it in your day-to-day? You can take pictures of, if you go to an event and there's a presentation, big screen, take a picture. The scribbles you can see, whiteboard scribbles, notepad. One of the kind of tedious tasks at the end of the day, if you're doing a whiteboard session, is somebody taking either taking a photo, but more likely transcribing that photo into notes that can be reused. Now, you can use ChatGPT to do that, and it will do it very well, and it will give you the summary. So you can take a picture of the whiteboard, upload the photo into ChatGPT and ask it to give you a summary. Give me the key points. What are the action items? If it's a strategy kind of session, it might be what else could I add into this that we haven't thought of. So its power is really high in the image detection area. So I'd recommend trialing that out, asking it for styling images. I'm going to give it a task where my wife and I are looking to do some renovations around our deck and our front yard. I'm going to take some photos and see what it comes out with, because it's very, again, it can recognize very well what's in that picture, and it gives you good ideas and options about what you might want to do that are contextual. If you use ChatGPT, there's some basically free apps that you'll get access to. What you need to do is on the menu on the left-hand side, basically go into the Explore GPT sections, and you'll see simple apps, if you like, that may be relevant to what you want to do and to speed you up. So there's just a selection I've put up on the screen. There's a lot of ones around writing or coding or copywriting or making slides or smart things in Excel. So all the productivity kind of tools. There's some fun ones as well, like Coloring Book Hero, which will take any idea and turn it into a coloring book pages if that's what you like to do. So I'd encourage you to go and have a look at these. These are free, available, and they can really help you in your day-to-day. I've got one myself. It's called Chat CXO. It's basically an advisor decision, helps you make better decisions. And you can give it the persona of your executive team. So your chief marketing officer or your CEO or your chief finance officer. And you can upload your plan and ask for a perspective. You can say, how would you make it more acceptable to your chief financial officer? You can play with things like that. And if you like, I've hard-coded different personas in there, and I ask you questions, so I get more context about your organization, the size, industry, what country you're operating in, those kinds of things, the risk tolerance of your executive team. And then it takes that persona and gives those responses back to the ideas or the documents that you're looking to make better and to do better within your organization. Tools. So many tools. More and more every day. So this is nowhere near an exhaustive list of tools that are basically built on models like ChatGPT. But there are ones that I find very useful and I use or I advise the organizations that I consult into to use. So as a search engine, there's one called Perplexity. It is very powerful. It's built on ChatGPT and it will provide links to the references so that you have confidence and trust in the results. It was one of the first ones to really do that. ChatGPT and Copilot and things, a lot more of the other ones actually do that now because they've worked out that that's what users want, more trust, less hallucination risk. But Perplexity is actually a really, really good tool. I recommend it. If you're in a meeting and you want to get the minutes and action items and summaries, Otter AI and Fireflies are tools. I've been using Otter, trying out Fireflies. And also, of course, there's Copilot within Microsoft Teams if you use that within your organization. Then you've got Copilot from Microsoft again. So not only Teams, but in Word and Excel and PowerPoint, it's embedded in there. You can use it. For user and market research, here's an interesting one around simulating synthetic customers, Yabble and synthetic users. So this is really a concept of you take that persona prompt to the kind of next level, but you use it to build up, if you like, an AI version of your customer base, and you test your content before you send it out. You test your ideas and your innovations before you send it out. You might test out your product ideas before you basically go from prototype to kind of build and test. So it's very interesting, and there's very positive results from organizations that are starting to use synthetic customers. for market research, which is time-consuming and expensive to organise. That's a great tool. There's some fun ones. So Google Notebook LM, not only does it kind of summarise the documents you upload, you can ask it to generate basically a podcast audio style of the content. And that's a really kind of fun way to kind of listen to the summary rather than having to read it. Headshots and photos and profile pictures being kind of, really studio quality and being uplifted with AI, video presentations and the like. So there's many, many, many tools, many more than this coming out every day. And one of the things I do if I'm stuck or thinking about wanting something more than just, say, ChatGPT out of the box, there's probably a tool out there. And I actually search within Perplexity and ask it, I want to do this, what AI tool is available? And generally what happens is it'll come back with a list of tools and I might have a look at those and go, yeah, oh, no, yeah, that one looks great. So I'll use that one. But there's tools and tools and tools coming out all the time. This is just to give you a feel for the evolution of image generation. And you can see from this portfolio, particularly on the right-hand side, the ones from Flux and the ones on the bottom, which do show that Leonardo is a very strong image generator when you get the prompts right. You can see basically that they're becoming ever more real and less artificially perfect, particularly the ones that are images of people and people in action. They're becoming very, very realistic. Which really means that they're usable often in what you might call standard marketing types and use cases, and for standard kind of content generation. They're very good. On the other side of the page, you kind of see the evolution over the last 12 months, 2 years, around the quality of the image generated from the prompts you put in. So again, ever more real, less artificially perfect, more usable and consumable for content. Okay, so it's AI. We should all be thinking about how do we use it responsibly, and how we really get the benefits without kind of getting stuck or with the risks, right? So hallucinations can occur. So part of the responses can be made up. Remembering what I said at the start, that it's just statistically generating the next best kind of part of word, part of sentence, etc. And it likes to talk. So there are ways to mitigate around asking it to provide citations and references. There are ways to ask it around guardrails. Saying, like within your prompt, if you don't know, then say you don't know. So giving an out rather than trying to force it to kind of respond, because it will respond. It just doesn't know how to say, I don't know, unless you tell it that's okay to say, I don't know. So there are other ways that you can do with hallucinations, and the out-of-the-box guardrails are getting better and better. And the ability for the AI to kind of search on the web for references and things makes hallucinations kind of less risky or less likely than they would have been to occur, say, 12 months ago. With data sharing, I think it's better to start with the assumption that you're asking or sharing, whatever the data you put up there, it'll be retained to become part of the training data or knowledge set. So think about privacy, commercial sensitivity, confidentiality of the documents that you share with any of the AIs. Depending on the size of your business, who you engage with as customers, and kind of, let's call it the regulations and compliance that occur in kind of your industry sector, I'd say consider around IP infringement risks and exposure, particularly when using generated images and video. Some of the tools come with protection. So Adobe Firefly comes with an indemnity cover for third-party infringement, violation of copyright on the images that it generates. I think it's also being aware of this in your prompts. So be wary of asking it for it to be very explicit style of an individual or logo. So, for example, rather than saying paint this like Monet would, it might be produce an image, paint this like an impressionist would. And those kinds of things, because there's a real question mark around IP infringement that's probably still circulating and percolating around generative AI. The other one to watch out, again, it depends on your kind of the business you are, what you're doing, etc. Is that sometimes the images have, they're either an exact copy of a branded item and it even might have the logo on it. So just be mindful of that in the way that you want to use it and just ask for it to remove brand logos. And then it will. So just be touchy around that. And generative AI is very energy intensive. It's more energy efficient now than it was 12, 18 months ago, but it is still energy intensive in its processing. So really be mindful when you're using it, not to use it like you would use Google, because if it's just a simple search, you're better off using Google and you'll probably get better results. But it's also going to be very, very much more energy efficient than just putting it through a generative AI tool. It's also about getting mindful around the options. So generating a number of options and doing a number of turns of iteration are good because you increase the quality. But there's a point in time where maybe if you're asking it to do 1,000 options every day, it may be a little bit too much. So just try to get the balance right, but consider the environmental impact. And really it's around each of us embracing Gen AI ethically, safeguarding privacy, looking to prevent bias as much as we can in what we do, respecting intellectual property, considering the environmental impact for responsible use. So I think we're up to Q&A again.
Thanks so much for that, Simon. There's so much to take in and so many different avenues to go down with AI that I know it's difficult to put it into such a short space of time. I did have a couple of questions for you though, and then we'll go to everyone here today. So don't forget to pop your questions into either the chat or the Q&A tab. You mentioned at one point all the apps that are available through these AI tools. Why, I guess, why or in what instance would you use an app instead of directly asking ChatGPT?
So some of the apps just give you more capabilities or features. So some are potentially more suited for image. So if you use Adobe Creator, for want of a better, or that creative suite, some of them will allow you to do more things on the image generation, allow you to crop and edit in more automated ways. So they're just more specialized. ChatGPT is a very general tool. The apps that are built on top of that are very much more focused on specific tasks or specific actions, and they're just better at it.
I guess it kind of helps you then, instead of creating these big elaborate prompts, it's already kind of geared towards whatever it is you're looking to do.
Yeah, they're out of the box. So somebody else has gone off to all that trouble or the work to create the personas, to build the prompts, to do the testing, and you can just take advantage of it.
Yeah, amazing. That sounds like a time saver to me. So excellent. We'll be looking at those apps. I mean, there are a lot of AI options out there, and especially you said there are so many apps. Where does an organization know where to start if they're looking to start integrating AI into their day-to-day?
Yeah, so I think you stick with the main players. You need to learn about that. So you're probably going to be in ChatGPT and Claude for written text. If you've got Microsoft product, Microsoft Copilot will probably come through. So it's to stick with those and the well-known ones until, if you like, there's a version of training wheels. So getting that understanding, but remembering again, they're powerful tools. So often the apps and the choice is around being very specialized around task focus and what you're trying to do. But from a generalized automation, let's call it knowledge worker, help me generate content. ChatGPT and Claude are great. Similarly with the image generators and the video generators, if that's part of your business or that you're interested in, it's to kind of keep in your back pocket one or two that work for you, because they're all very strong.
Yeah, so a little bit of trial and error probably needs to be involved. Yeah.
Some of them have different personalities as well. So like I said, don't know what they do in terms of the user experience, but I actually like the way that Claude, relative to ChatGPT, answers question and produces content. And it's got something around the nuances of its personality and expression that works for me. It may not work for you. So, trial a couple of them until you find one that really works for you from an interaction perspective, but also the outputs.
Okay. And so, I mean, people are now aware that AI is out there and it's being used for a variety of different reasons. What do you think businesses should do in regards to transparency using AI, or how to build trust with their customer base in using AI in their day-to-day businesses?
That's a great question, Tegan. I think there's around about, first of all, what your business is, but also, the expectation from your customers. So with image, let's call it touching up, if you want now, there's actually a lot of quite AI tools that are actually used on a day-to-day. And that tends to be almost like an expectation that pictures are perfect or images are perfect, whatever that is defined. So I think it's about being transparent. The other part is around that quality of output. So if you're basically generating documentation, the Gen AI often will allow you to get a better output because you can turn it around and iterate and polish more than you could ever do as a kind of typical individual. But I think it's really around, what is your specific use case and what are you kind of, what's the promise that you're giving to your customer base? And then be transparent and open in that as you are today.
Yeah. All right. Thank you. So we do have some questions coming in from people online. Sarah has asked, what AI tool would you recommend for video editing? I know you mentioned a couple of them. Do you have a favorite?
So Runway is probably the one I would start with. But the video and image, there's a lot of editors. So, and I wouldn't profess myself to be an expert on video generation, but I would start with Runway. It's quite a sophisticated tool.
Okay, great. And we have a question here from Doug. It is a bit of a long one, so bear with me. As generative AI models continue to evolve, we're seeing advancements in retrieval augmented generation and hybrid AI architectures combining symbolic reasoning with neural networks. Do you see a future where these systems generate neurosymbolic approaches to enhance explainability and reasoning?
Great question. That is a very sophisticated user question. I think short answer is yes, and that's about being transparent about how the answers are generated. If you asked the makers of ChatGPT and Claude and those kinds of tools today, if you ask them how do they actually really think, if you push them enough, they will basically say we don't really know how it does what it does. They can give you all the kind of, we think it works like this, we think it works like that. But if you push them, they don't really know how some of the answers get generated. So I think, Doug, point there around driving towards explainability and transparency in the reasoning, whatever the framework is, I think there'll be more and more emphasis on that.
Which I guess almost ties in with Odette's question is who owns the output of these generations? Who
owns the output? So I'd probably say look at the T's and C's of the provider that you're kind of working with, the tool that you're using, because they're all different. So I think the part there is around, again, what you're looking to do with the output and how are you essentially commercializing it or using it, or what's the use case? Because if you're but I think most of it is it's just generated, because most of the imagery, for example, you could quite rightly argue that it's kind of just the same stuff, slightly different. There's no intrinsic extra value. It's a bit more problematic in the artist space. So I'm going to step back from that, Tegan, because it's not clear right now. Like there's no real precedent around some of these things.
It's a bit of a watch this space sort of deal at the moment, would seem.
Yeah.
So Taz has asked if you're using a paid version of ChatGPT and projects and the benefits for marketers are being uploaded to a bunch of reference material to create from, how secure is this? So not anything specific. So no customer data, no brand guidelines.
So I think so it's for you to look at. If it's general, and it's very general and you've desensitized it by pulling out specific customer references and a lot of the dollar value, if there's sensitivity around that or that, I would look at it as low risk because, like I said before, the models have been trained on the totality of the public internet, which is a lot of stuff. So chances are it's already seen lots of variations and versions of exactly what you're putting up there if there's nothing specific in it. Now, if you have a commercial contract that names the parties and has the dollar values in there, so it is identifiable and etc., I wouldn't recommend putting that up into the general publicly available tools. Some of the enterprise versions of the tools, they make commitments about we won't use it in training data, etc. Depending on the tool, even the general publicly available ones, I think some of them you're allowed from a privacy perspective to basically take your documents and things out, not to be used for training purpose and things, but I'd be very mindful and assume that they'd be using it. So that's one not to put into, upload and say, give me a summary of this one.
Okay. And Tanya has asked, I use the $20 a month ChatGPT and she loves it. She even recently built a bot which she uses daily. So good on you, Tanya. You explained the difference between the $20 version and the $200 version and if it's worth upgrading.
Great question. I use the $20 version too, Tanya. There you go. That's the one I use because I've got a bunch of tools. It just depends on the volume. So I think it's two things. If you go from the 20 to the 200, and that's US dollars a month version, the 200 one will give you more volume of basically what they call tokens, which is the amount of kind of, if you like, every part of a word it gets broken down into the chunks that it's trying to predict is called a token. So if you spend more, you can generate more content, have it query more content. So it depends on your use case. I think the other one is that at times you get slightly earlier access to some of the newer models in the 200 than you do in the 20 and the free. But again, depends on your kind of use case. I would think unless you're a super heavy user, you can probably stay at the 20, unless on a regular basis you're getting pushback that says today you've used up your limit or this month you've already used up your limit and you're like 5 days into the month. That probably suggests you need to go up.
Okay. So I've got one more question because I do realise that we've gone over a little bit. So Gary would like to know, is there a recommendation for an AI tool that we can run over our database, which they're using Excel, to isolate clients that we wish to target for a new release product that might interest them?
I'd probably say put it into Perplexity. Gary, I think so there's two things. One is put in Perplexity to ask for a specialized tool. The other one might be to just try it out on whatever your enterprise approved or your business approved kind of Gen AI assistant is. So whether that's Copilot, ChatGPT, or Claude, run it through that and see if with the existing capability and a bit of context, what you're looking for in kind of the customer base, it can provide you with insights that are kind of positive and the ones you need.
Great. All right. Well, that's brought us to the end of today's session. Simon, thank you very much for sharing your insights and giving us some ideas on how to use AI and prompts. We will be sharing the presentation with everyone in our wrap-up email that goes out, and Simon has also kindly provided quite a few prompts that you can use through all these AI tools as well. So keep an eye out for that a little bit later this afternoon. You would have seen a survey request come up on your screen. Please, we'd love to hear your feedback. So please fill it out. You can also give us an idea of other topics that you'd like to hear from these mentor labs. And again, we are welcoming new mentors into our community. If this is something that might interest you, we'd love to hear from you. And the same, if you were interested in coming on board as a Rare Birds mentee, we can also happily chat to you about that. Just indicate in the survey and a Rare Birds team member will reach out to you. Simon, thanks again. It's been really helpful learning a little bit more about how to use AI. And thank you everyone for joining. We'll see you again next time.